Welcome to Clariot Noir. The following recordings are based on real events in Bridal Veil Lake. Stories come directly from the people who have experienced them. Listener discretion is advised. Stranded by Kimble. I jog frequently on the old rail trail on the north side of the gorge. They used to run quarried limestone out of there about 100 years ago, if you didn't know. Now the rails are gone, and the pathway is paved over with tarmac. Hummingbirds live in the little holes drilled into the stone. The trees give a lot of shade, and there are a few waterfalls, not as big or well known as the Bridal Veil down at the lake, but just as beautiful, and certainly less busy with tourists. It's like this part of Bridal Veil Lake was kept back from the outside world, for us, the people that grew up here. I love the gorge, or what I know of it, is what I'm saying. But I do, unfortunately, have one bad experience from about 5 years back. As I said, I jog, and was jogging the trail before work, around 6:30 a.m. The only people I usually encounter at that time are dog walkers and other runners. Maybe it was the overcast sky or the plunging temperature of late fall, but nobody seemed to be out today. It was nice and quiet and peaceful. I loved it. I ran the length of the trail to where it ended at one of the new overpasses and doubled back. About halfway through, by an outlook spot, was an old guy in an electric wheelchair. He stared at me as I prepared to pass. "A little help?" he said, just as I went by. I hate stopping during a run, but, of course, if someone needed help, I would. Did. "What's up?" I was breathing hard and sweaty. A few raindrops had started. He gestured to his wheelchair. "It's died on me." I stared. "I see." We watched each other awkwardly. I didn't have my phone. He didn't own one. "I can run back to my car and call someone for you." His smile looked pained as he shook his head. No one to answer. "Okay," I said. "I'll push you back to your car, your house?" He seemed instantly relieved. "The second one." And he pointed to where I'd come from, the opposite direction of my car. I had to be at work in an hour, but my boss is cool. I wouldn't be upset if I were late because of helping someone in need. It's more difficult to push the dead wheelchair than expected, and we're going at a really slow pace. It's awkward, and I'm sure he's embarrassed. So I'm not upset when he begins asking questions about my job, where I live, if I'm married, and so on. I'm not a particularly private person, but he seems to be. When I ask him the same types of questions, he doesn't answer. Not even vaguely. I thought at first he couldn't hear me, but he made a comment about the fluttering of the hummingbirds, which is pretty darn hard to catch. Whatever. I keep pushing, and his questions become more personal. Too personal, in fact. "Have you ever kissed a girl?" Yeah. "Ever touch one?" "Well, obviously, has she touched you?" His questions were weird. So I told him I didn't want to talk anymore, and that I needed to focus anyway. He kept his mouth shut, but patted my hand with his over his shoulder, and let his touch linger too long. I pulled my hand away and told him he was making me uncomfortable. He apologized immediately. "I'm sorry, I get a little confused sometimes. I actually just forgot who you were, but figured we must be close since you were pushing me. I'm sorry." Seemed reasonable enough. A few minutes later, however, he started getting weird again. "Do you go to church?" "No." "Good," he said. "Big fucking waste of time. There is no God, or if there was, he's dead now, and the earth is his grave." He spat beside his wheelchair. I didn't respond. The sooner this was over, the better. We reached the overpass, and I took him up the path to the sidewalk. He directed me across the street and into a sketchy neighborhood. There was a condemned building to our left, and a lot of empty houses on the right. "Here," he said. He wasn't looking anywhere or pointing. The house we stopped at looked awful. The windows were boarded over and graffitied. The door had been nailed shut. "Here?" He surprised me when he stood up and walked onto the lawn. When he turned around, he started waving and had a pained-looking grin on his face. It was like his smile was pulling all the skin tightly around his skull. "See you, Aaron." I can't remember giving him my name. Maybe I did? I don't think so. But how else could he know? I'm copying his waving motion, and he walks to the driveway and starts prying at the side door, grunting from the effort. I feel like he's confused again, and this isn't where he lives. But the door opens, and he goes in. I don't know what else I can do at this point. I wait around for a minute before jogging back to the gorge and my car. It was a weird experience. It doesn't put me off jogging my trail, though. I'm there the next morning, and, strangely, he is too, but without his wheelchair. "Hi, Aaron," he calls as I increase my speed. I don't have time for this crazy old man. When I double back, he calls out again. "Little help," he says, just like last time. And I stop to tell him off. "How did you get here?" His creepy-ass smile falters. I'm not sure. I don't remember, but we know each other, right? I tried to be patient, but I'm sure my frustration showed. I recounted the broken wheelchair incident from the previous day. He looked so sad by the end of it that I started to feel guilty. Want me to take you home again? Yes, I don't remember where. Do you know where I live? I had my doubts about the place I'd left him yesterday. I don't. Sorry, let me run back to my car and I'll call the police. He looked alarmed. Just for some help. You're not in trouble. Some help? He started to shake his head. Get out of here. I don't know you. Go. Fucking faggot. Fuck you. And the expletives continued to fly. I jogged away, figuring I'd done what I could. By the time I got to my car, however, I felt like I should do something. The guy was obviously not well. I called the police, and then my work, to tell them I'd be late again. 2 constables showed up about 30 minutes later and asked if I wouldn't mind showing them where the old guy was. I obliged. But when we got to the spot where I'd left him, he wasn't there. The wheelchair was. What the fuck? I told the constables he hadn't been in a wheelchair when I saw him today. That had been yesterday's ordeal. They seemed confused. So was I. The constables found the guy about a minute later, hiding off to the side of the trail in some brush. They brought him out in cuffs, and he wouldn't look at me. He seemed to have no trouble walking at a quick pace. What? I don't understand. The constables traded a look. You need to be more careful. One of them showed me a stun gun, the kind that shoots and clips onto a target. I still didn't get it at that point. He was looking for a victim, the constable explained away from the old guy. Tell me more about yesterday. I did. He was trying to lure you into a second location. You'll have to show us the house you brought him to. I think I went into shock. Lure me? For what? The constable didn't answer. I think he was waiting at the side of the trail for someone else. You hadn't interacted with him as he intended. That's why he'd gotten so mad. I took the rest of the day off, and did eventually have to go to court as a witness against Jeff Godwin, a 66-year-old in fairly good health, a dangerous offender, a rapist, and a kidnapper. The house I dropped him off at contained a mattress, multiple pairs of handcuffs, and most disturbingly, a toolbox full of makeshift torture devices. There were also 2 cans of black spray paint that no one figured out the purpose for. Godwin wouldn't say. He went to jail, but wasn't given a sentence for as long as you might think. Fortunately, he died in prison, which is the only reason you can still find me jogging on the trail today.